Good evening, and welcome to this, the July 18th meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And here comes number 7. My name is Joe Steiner. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here at Summit City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed on the city's YouTube page and also broadcast on Summit's government channel, which is Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Channel 30. That system is also used to create a transcript of this meeting, which is being taken using that video, so we need all speakers to utilize one of the microphones in the room. Yes, we may be able to hear you in the room, but you're going to have to come to one of the microphones so we get an appropriate recording. Please note that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city also has an assisted listening system to help the hearing impaired. If anyone needs that hearing assistance, please obtain the system here at the dais and return it here thereafter. Andy Ball on my right is the board's attorney. He will advise the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with the applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Next is Mr. Chris Nicola, who is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Mr. Nicola works with the applicants on preparing their applications, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. Mr. Nicola also does not vote on the applications. Also present is Chris Dower at the table to my right. He is the board's engineer. Mr. Dower provides input to the board and also does not vote on the applications, and when we speak about having our experts ask questions, it's usually Mr. Dower and somebody from the planning, the board's planning consultant. None of the applications tonight require that. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7, which is what we have tonight, can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications will require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You'll be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. We generally hear the cases in the order that they're listed on the agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but we do understand that some cases are too complex to be heard within that time frame. Each hearing will begin with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses that the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once the board members and the board professionals have completed their questioning, the public has an opportunity to ask questions. That will not be the time for you to tell us what you think of the case. That will come a little bit later. Before you ask your questions, again, come to a microphone, clearly state your name and spell your last name, and provide your address. It is important so that the court reporter is able to keep a clear and accurate public record. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the audience then have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time, you can express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. You will be sworn in to provide that testimony. Then the public hearing is closed and we enter into executive session where the board members discuss the case and vote. You'll be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in that discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If a case requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we'll carry your case to another date, and it will not be decided during this meeting. Krista Anderson, the city zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and to pay particular attention to the conditions that are contained in that resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will cause extra work for the city zoning staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision are usually available 1 month after we decide the case. So now we're going to go over the agenda, and as I call your name, would someone, the attorney or the applicant, approach and let us know whether or not you can complete your case in 30 minutes and whether or not you have, how many witnesses you may have. Let's begin with High Tech Builders, LLC.
Good evening, Anthony D'Alessandro on behalf of the applicant. We can do it in under 30 minutes. We just have 1 witness, the homeowner.
Okay, thank you. Kristen and Natalie Lind, 41 Oakley. Can you come forward? Just one of you to tell us whether or not, how many witnesses you have and whether or not you can do it in 30 minutes.
Sure. Christian Lind, we can absolutely do it in 30 minutes. And I guess she's my witness.
Okay, so there's just the 2 of you. There's no expert witness or, okay. And then 111 Whitridge Road, Carrie and Mark, and I'm not going to even try.
Hi, I'm Carrie Kosiancic. My husband, Mark, couldn't make it tonight. We can absolutely do it under 30 minutes, and I have no witnesses representing ourselves.
Okay. And 25 Baltusrol Place, Tyler Morse. They're outside. Well, they're last, so they're going to go last. We'll see what happens when we get to last. Let's begin with number 1, which is High Tech Builders, LLC.
Sure. We got to call the roll.
I'm sorry?
We got to call the roll.
You'd like to call the roll? Did I leave that out?
You did. That's
Oh,
okay.
wow, I made another classic error. It's the Steiner errors continue. Would you please call the roll?
Yeah, before we proceed, is anybody in the public here for 65 Pine Grove who noticed for this night as well? No? Okay, turns out they didn't need a variance, so just wanted to check. Anyway, now calling the roll. Chairman Spur is excused. Vice Chairman Steiner?
Yes, here.
Mr. Yuko is excused. Ms. Newell?
Here.
Mr. Mullen?
Here.
Mr. Millay?
Here.
Mr. Loikitz? Here. Ms. Toth is excused. Ms. Sager is also excused. Dr. Levine?
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Here.
All right, you have a quorum. You can proceed.
Thank you, and I apologize. One of these days I'll get it right. By then you'll have a new vice chair. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Anthony D'Alessandro on behalf of the property owner of 21 Hughes Place in Summit High Tech Builders, LLC, with Manish Kumar as the sole member of the LLC. The homeowner seeks to add a 16 by 16 feet, 256 square foot deck on the rear of the home. The home is a new single-family dwelling for which a building coverage of exactly 20% was already approved. The homeowner wants to create an outdoor living space that is more conducive to current living while keeping with the style of the home. We are seeking a C variance for the relief from the maximum 20% building coverage requirement, where 24.15% is now being proposed. The lot will remain conforming. The previously approved patio underneath the deck will continue to remain. I just want to make a note that the neighbor on the right side has a very similar deck currently, and the homeowner's deck here will be very similar in size and will not go further in length into the yard than the neighbor's current deck. The deck will be modern and blend into the home, will be architecturally appropriate, will be made of composite decking with aluminum or vinyl handrails, set back appropriately from the rear and the sides, no stormwater issues, no detriment to any other properties. To touch on the board comments, Ralph Maritato, the construction official, had no objection. John Linson, the city forester, he brought up some points about screening. The homeowner will further address, but I just want to say here that the rear yard is currently screened by 16-foot evergreen trees already. The right side is screened by a 6-foot vinyl fence, and the homeowner recently planted evergreen trees on the left side as well to properly screen on all 3 sides of the property. To touch on the criteria, positive criteria, the deck promotes a visual environment given that it's a nice new modern deck, preserving the character of the home, creating an outdoor living space that is more conducive to modern day living, will blend with the mass scale and architecture of the home. There is already screening and the homeowner has provided additional screening, very similar in size and look to the neighbor's deck, and the benefits of deviation outweigh any detriment. Negative criteria, no detriment to the neighborhood character. Many of the surrounding houses have similar improvements and decks. No adverse effect on adjoining properties or the city. There is no damage that would create substantial detriment to the public good. Zoning plan and ordinance will not be substantially impaired by granting the variance. The deck will not cause any undesirable noise, light, glare, odors, or any burdens, and will not negatively impact the surrounding property owners. So if there's no questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to the homeowner.
Let me ask Mr. Dower.
I really don't have any questions. I'll ask it.
Okay. Anybody from the board have any questions for the attorney?
The deck you referenced.
I haven't seen a survey. Is there a survey in this package?
There is a site plan which was.
Yeah, the
previously
grading
approved.
plan, but that's not an official survey, is it? And what's the status now? Is it under construction or you're planning to? Where are we now with the construction?
So, construction of the
wait,
house.
wait.
Hold it, the attorney has to answer, or we'll hold it for the homeowner.
No, the question
Right.
is for the attorney.
Okay.
Yes, so the home construction is complete and the deck has not been started yet.
Okay, thank you.
The deck you referenced on the neighboring property, that other property is a two-family home, right?
I believe so.
Right, and that didn't look like the sort of deck one would have for entertaining. It just seems to be a staircase down to the yard.
It has, and the homeowner will touch upon this a little better than I can. It has some space on top, but one of the main reasons for this deck is that because of the floor, where there's so much to the ground level, stairs have to be constructed anyway to enjoy the lower patio. So that's why the homeowner would like to construct this top deck first. But he would be better to speak upon that than me.
I'll save the rest of my questions for the
Okay.
homeowner.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, then in that case, why don't you go ahead and call your first witness?
Okay, so the applicant calls Manish Kumar, the homeowner.
And if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Manish Kumar, Kumar, my last.
Thank you.
He's your witness.
Manish, go.
Yeah, so I'm proposing to add a deck, 16 by 16 feet, and that will be at the first level. Right now, the topography of the lot is such that my rear of the house is 8 feet above the ground. So, to enjoy the deck from the first floor, basically I need a deck which will be 8 feet high from the ground. The dimension of the deck will be 16 by 16, and above the patio, so we're not impinging much the impervious surface or the lot coverage. That was the plan, to add a deck just above the patio.
And Manish, the main purpose of the deck?
Purpose of the deck is to enjoy the outdoor space, from the first floor. Otherwise, I already have a door there, slider from the first floor to go out, and without a deck, it will not be a convenient way of going outside from the rear of the house.
And Manish, can you briefly describe the landscaping around the perimeter of the yard?
Yeah, so the house under construction is fully completed from the exterior, and site is restored, grass is placed, and landscape on the rear side is on the property line. Two side is screened with evergreen, and one side has a neighbor fence which is 6 feet high.
That's all we have, if you have questions specifically.
Mr. Dower, your questions?
Well, on the approved plan, which was dated, the last revision was 10/11/22, actually, it's no year down here, but anyway, the original date was 8/11/21. They mentioned that the lot coverage proposed was 1735, but on the plan provided by the architecture plus firm, says that the lot coverage was approved, or existing, is 1617. So I don't know what, it's a difference of about 117 square feet.
The last site plan was approved 8/11, which described.
So is there a difference between what was proposed and what was built that you're aware of?
No, we built as per the approved plan, approved site plan.
But the proposed lot coverage will increase it to 1825 square feet, so that is correct.
Sorry. So we are just adding 256 additional for the deck, and everything was built as per the approved site plan. So lot coverage which was approved was 1230 square feet, and we are adding 256 square feet more.
Chris, you're asking about lot coverage and not
Lot
building
coverage.
Building lot coverage.
Yeah. No, building coverage is different than lot coverage I'm talking about.
Okay, so lot coverage was approved was 1617 square feet.
Right, but it shows on your plans, the new plans, that the existing lot coverage, which would be what was approved, is 1825. I mean, 1817, I apologize.
Let me see. Okay, so, yeah, I take it back. So, as per the site plan, it's 1735 was the lot coverage approved.
Okay, so regardless, the increase in impervious coverage you said was, I have down as 208 square feet. Is it different than that?
Yes, the original application had the patio at 15 by 15.
Okay.
That's 208, but it's actually 16 by 16.
Okay,
So it's 256.
okay. I think Krista noticed it.
She did,
notice
yes.
a difference in that too.
Yep.
Okay, so, I mean, the city didn't require, the drainage is just being directed to the street, which, and that's what was approved. And the increase is below 300, so we're not gonna require any additional stormwater improvements. And that's pretty much what we note here, is that stormwater was addressed in the original application to the city that was approved. So they're not proposing anything, and we're not looking for, recommending anything at this time for additional stormwater.
Okay.
And Chris, that discrepancy in lot coverage, that wouldn't put us over
No,
as far as
because
requiring variance, right?
lot coverage is, for the zone is 45%, so
Okay.
they're way under it. Then the only other question I had was the location of the air conditioning units and a generator, and if they're going to be screened or if they are screened.
It's going to be screened with fans on two sides. 4 feet by 4 feet.
Okay. It's just something that would have to be approved by the city forester.
And there's an ordinance in place, and one of the conditions will be that you will, Mr. Dower's report will be part of the resolution, so you'll have to comply with any and all of those, which include the screening of any air conditioners and/or generators.
There's no generator proposed, is that correct?
Correct. There is no generator.
So, but if one were to be miraculously show up, like my failure to call the roll, you know, we would have to come back and take care of that with us. Other questions?
Yeah, I got a few.
I figured you would.
So when you filed the plans, was there any provision for a deck made in those plans initially?
No.
And you filed those plans at at building coverage exactly at 20%, the maximum for the zone, correct?
Correct.
And so walk me through this. So you were basically at maxed out. You knew you couldn't put any more building coverage in, yet you built a walkout on the second floor
So we have.
with that knowledge?
Yeah, so we have a walkout basement.
Yeah, I
So
saw
we
that.
thought, okay, we just build the patio and it would be good enough for the house, but now when the house is built, it doesn't sound convenient at all. So, and I'm builder, I had few buyers showing up and asking for deck. So, I mean, that's what made us, I mean, deck, without the deck, it would be hard to live in there or enjoy the outdoor space. Like people want deck like in the kitchen level or family room level where they can access easily. Going in the through the basement, accessing outdoor is not convenient for day-to-day life. So
You went ahead and made a construction decision knowing you were exceeding what you were approved for.
yeah, I mean, a variance
For
could
marketing
be,
purposes,
variance
basically.
could be applied for any time, right? During the construction also, I could have asked for variance for the deck. But I thought, okay, that time the patio would be enough, so I don't need variance. But
Let me ask you, from a builder's perspective, would it have been less disruptive to say, build it with a normal standard window, and then if you went ahead and applied for a variance, then make the cuts to make it a walkout versus, let's say, you know, you come here, you have that walkout already built, no deck attached to it. If you were declined here, I would imagine you'd have to change that up and either build a Juliet balcony or a window to make the property safe. Wouldn't that have been easier to go the other way around?
the plan is already.
Before you do, let me just interject here. I did ask that question of city staff, how we got to having this door in the way. They did apply, their original application, if I read what you gave me, included this door, just the way it is, with a grill in front of it.
Okay, so it made provision for a
And that was
Juliet balcony.
provision for that, because I said, how could you possibly put a door to nowhere? And the answer was, I didn't think that was something, and I didn't think the city would have approved that. And they went back and looked at, and I do have it on my phone, but we could add it in somehow if we had to, but, Chris?
Yeah, the prior permit shows a guardrail in front, right, Mr. Kumar?
Correct,
And that's how you're
yeah,
having people safely not fall off
right.
from that story, right? So that's
How
what,
it would be built if we say no.
Fair enough.
Other questions?
I think,
How many
I
trees,
understand.
how many trees did you have taken down?
We have taken down the trees as per the approved plan. So I think there's one in front, one inside.
So the new landscaping, did that accommodate the trees that were taken down, or is that?
Yeah, so we planted like 10 evergreen trees and one other tree. So
Other questions? questions from the public for this witness?
One question on
Oh,
the screening
sorry.
of the air conditioning units. Is there going to be screening on the street side of the air conditioning units?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
On the street side, on the left side of the property.
I just want to clarify one quick thing. The two trees were taken down, but not for this application. That was for the prior, correct, Mr. Kumar?
Correct,
Yep,
that was for the.
And that was just for the building.
The building.
Which did not come before any board,
correct.
but we bring everything back in when,
Yep.
when we come here. Okay, public, any questions from the public for this witness? Please, questions only. Yes, come on, come on. I have comments. Okay, all right. Anything else?
Nope, that's it from our perspective.
Okay, so then we go to the second part of the public opportunity. If there's anyone who wishes to tell us what they will think about this application, sir. Again, come forward.
If you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Davis Gates, last name Gates, and I'm at 16 Hughes Place.
Thank you.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, I'm currently opposed to the deck as it's currently designed for the following reasons. You have to recall that Hughes Place is a street comprised of very small lots. Most, if not all, are less than 1/8 of an acre with only 50 feet in width. In that, there have been a history of complaints over property lines, zoning violations, privacy concerns, et cetera, et cetera. As former president of the East Summit Association, myself and my wife have fielded complaints over the years from the street, and at times we take the brunt of the impact of these complaints from those who were complained against while keeping the anonymity of a lot of folks that complain. So you can assume that there's going to be a lot of concerns on this issue. And just a little history, about 12 years ago, we ourselves put in for a variance to have a deck exiting our second-story kitchen. Now, I know, to be fair, that was ancient history by zoning standards, but it was denied. And
I'll just note
What's it?
that
Yes, sir?
this board is not going to consider any separate applications on separate properties.
Okay, we're not
It's
doing that.
irrelevant to the purposes of this
yes,
application.
this is directly applicable to today's case. We're just giving an example that that's already been taken care of. It was reduced to a 5x9 landing, just enough to enter and exit the kitchen. And we were just going to say at first, we were upset, but over the years, we realized it was a sound decision. Because when we step outside, we can see the neighbors in our yard. Now, for the current application, the deck is 8 feet high. The line of sight of an average-sized person is going to be 14 feet, because 8 feet plus 5 feet roughly of the line of sight. So I'm not convinced that a 6-foot fence on one side or some bushes on the other or the back is going to help with the privacy issue. Because in our case, you know, sometimes in our little landing, we can see 2-3 houses down. So we're concerned about the privacy. And notice, we didn't even put chairs outside. Had this been a full deck, we'd be guilty of violating neighbors' privacy. And even if you get current approval from the neighbors, Summit is a very transient town, for better or for worse. You can't guarantee that the next neighbors moving in would have the same feeling. Now, 21 Hughes Place, it's got a walkout basement, and it sounds like you got a patio and planning. So proposing a 256 square foot second-story deck, it sounds a little bit grand scale for a lot size so small, even if you are not concerned about the immediate neighbors. I can't imagine what kind of tree line or agricultural growth you can generate around that yard to cover that up. So we're not opposed to improvements. I mean, actually, we're kind of thrilled that there's a new house on the block because, we've done a lot of building ourselves, so there's nothing wrong with building houses and things like that. We would just like the board to consider scaling this back a little bit, because 256 square feet, that's huge. That's bigger than most rooms in a house. And we don't know who's going to live in that house. That's enough room to have a fraternity party. It's not like most decks on the street are large enough to walk out on. You can go down the stairs, you can go around, so we understand that you need to go out the back of the house. We just think the 16 by 16 design is a little excessive, given the lot size and the size of the neighborhood. Thank you.
I'm going to ask for a moment to confer with the attorney for a second. Okay. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to check on a potential conflict, so. Okay, anyone else from the, please.
And if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Anna Venutolo, Venutolo.
Thank you. And before we do go on, I don't know if we opened it up. Counsel, did you have any questions for that witness?
No, no question.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. You can proceed.
So I live on 25 Hughes Place. And 21 Hughes Place, it's almost like right next door because we have very, very small lots. And the right-hand neighbor that you were talking about that has deck, it's actually duplex. As Mr. Moline has mentioned. And while I can appreciate that you want the outdoor space living, we would like to have some privacy in our indoors. So I am completely opposed to this deck. I second Dave's.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to tell us what they think about this case? Do you have anything to add?
Sure. So I would say regarding the privacy issue, so I am not violating any setback issues. I could have built my house way back in the yard and gone the setback limit, you know. So, and that would be the same, like, you know. So I am staying within the setback of the property, and I have just other gentleman, I think, he said his address is 16 Hughes Place, and that is opposite street, you know, house on the opposite side of the street is not in the same line also, same side of the street. I don't know how it's going to impact him. And the deck size actually is 16 by 16. The actual deck is going to be 16 by 12, and another 4 feet I need for the staircase to go down in the backyard. So that's what it is. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. Anything else? Any summary from you?
Nope, that's all we have.
Okay, then we will move ahead into conditions.
The only condition I had noted was compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum.
Okay, we will now enter into executive session, and who would like to kick us off? I'm looking at you, but I'll take that.
I'll start.
Okay.
As you might imagine, I'm not in favor of this application. The neighbors' privacy concerns resonate with me. I walked the property yesterday and took a look at the sight lines and imagined myself 8 feet above where I was standing, and the concerns resonate. I mean, you can see into like 2 to 3 yards over from that height, I would estimate. So, you know, those privacy concerns are significant. And also from a process standpoint, you know, this seems like one of those cases that we get from time to time where an applicant's asking for forgiveness rather than permission. And, you know, this was built to the max, and now we're here going a little bit above the max. And you combine that with the privacy concerns that are thrown out there, I can't support it. I would support a landing to a staircase to get down there. That's a practical benefit, but I can't support a deck here.
Anyone else wish to comment?
So I agree. I was wondering maybe if we can come to some sort of agreement, with maybe putting lattice or something to protect some sort of screening from that area. I wonder if that would be possible.
Thinking on the fence, like just fence going up a ways?
Well,
or-
like on one side, maybe you do a lattice and, you know.
One side of the deck, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Or ground level? Okay.
Yeah, so this way it gives like the one side neighbor at least some privacy, and maybe some greenery to make it more appealing. Because otherwise, I share your same concern. I think it's, that area is very condensed, and I'm not sure if I would be happy living next door with people peering down on me, but I would be happier with some screening. So right now, I would be opposed to it.
So when I'm still a little bit on the fence and enjoying hearing my colleagues' points of view, ultimately in conclusions. But what I thought when I read this application is I said, wow, there's so much more lot coverage that they have to work with. Why not make the patio a little bit larger? Maybe the patio can have a bit of an outdoor kitchen and a little more space on the patio because they have that space, but they don't have the building coverage. And then, and you did build it, and that was not a coincidence. And I do see, and as I'm flipping through, and you know, I hate to say this, you see, oh, it is, you know, commissioned by a developer, and you see that it's exactly 20% building coverage. In my mind, that's something that is noted. But then I did say, gosh, that is some restraint with lot coverage. So those were the things I thought about. Also, if you were to build a landing and stairs, which is also something that occurred to me once I looked at that side elevation and saw the 8 feet, how the land slopes down in the back, and I thought, oh, you know, the basement opening out is really not the same functionally day to day as a kitchen that opens out, and I completely understand that. But the thing is, if you're already built at 20%, you would be here anyway if you were building a landing and stairs, because that's still building coverage, even if it's only a few feet, because you're already over and you would need the same variance. So these are the things I was thinking about before, and I'm still sort of mulling through right now.
I think David's right on the mark with this. No one's building sliders 8 feet up in the air for a Juliet balcony condition in a single-family home. I've been an architect for 25 years. I've never seen that before. So I think it's very clear that the intent was to come before this board all along and try and get this waiver. So, and that's really disturbing. Usually when we get cases like this, it's someone has bought a house with an existing condition that they had nothing to do with, and they're trying to make the best of it and resolve this. So this was clearly planned and designed to get to this point, and that's not the point of why we're here or what we do. So with that, I don't think I can support this application.
Anyone else wish to opine? I can tell you that I agree with both of you. I was concerned how we had a door in the middle of nowhere, and initially I almost blamed the city of Summit for allowing it to be built until I found, Chris went and got the information that tells me that they couldn't have stopped it because of what was on the plans, which basically it's not a balcony. It's just basically a frame in front of it, there's just too much wrong with this to allow it to go forward. So I will join you in opposing it. It requires a simple majority. So as 3 of us have expressed a negative opinion, we'll take a motion either way, and then, you know, we need 4 affirmative votes to approve it. So if somebody wants to make a motion either way.
Move to decline.
Is there a
Second.
There's a second. Okay, the motion is to decline. If you vote yes, you're voting not to approve the application.
All right, before we proceed, who had the second? I had the motion to Mr. Mullen, and the second was Mr. Malay. Okay. Thank you. All right, Ms. Newell? Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Steiner?
Yes. So the motion is passed and the application is not approved. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. And we move on to 41 Oakley Avenue.
And before we start, are you both going to be testifying tonight? Yes. All right.
She, I'm
anyone
sure she'll
Why don't you just
chime in.
both get sworn in so
Swear
in
you-
case you have to say something?
We'll swear you both in. If you could each raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And one at a time, please state your name, spell your last name.
Christian Lind, L-I-N-D.
Natalie Lynn, L-I-N-D.
You can leave it in the middle, it'll be fine. Okay.
Perfect.
Please tell us a little bit about your application and give us your testimony as to what you're requesting from this board.
Sure. So roughly 14 months ago, we had put forth plans and actually applied for variances to do a certain amount of work on our home. This is unfortunately the third time we were here. Hopefully you can get past the second time we visited, which was for a shed, which unfortunately we did not realize we had to do. Otherwise, we would have put that that would have been included in the first visit. So we're roughly a year into this, and our contractor unfortunately has been extremely slow in this process. And throughout that slow process, I think it's really opened our eyes in terms of how the project has been progressing, and I think certain changes came up over time. And actually, our contractor was the one that I think is the reason we're sitting here, is because we do have a two-car garage, and both my wife and I have Suburbans. And in the original plans that were approved, unfortunately, only one of those Suburbans would have been able to fit in the garage, because there was a walkway walking basically from the main part of the home to the back of the garage. And our contractor approached us and said, listen, I think I can reconstruct this where we basically enter the garage from the kitchen and we get rid of that entire long walkway, which was eating up a good portion of the garage. So because of that, the thought was, well, we would love to get both cars in the garage, and I think the only way to get two Suburbans in a Summit home or Summit attached garage, ultimately going back to the shed, was to get everything out of our garage, because once you have two Suburbans in there, it's very, very tight. So that's really the reason we're here. And then from there, it turned into, well, I get up at 4:40 in the morning for work. I'm out of the house at, roughly 5:10. If we're going to do that, the thought was originally we were only going to get one Suburban in the garage. I would just leave my car outside. Now that we can get both in, our daughter's room was originally above the garage, and the thought was to, from noise issues, noise concerns, we would move our master bedroom to above the garage. So that's one of the additional changes as well. And why don't I just go through the changes? Those are the kind of the real significant changes, I would say, in terms of the project. And I think we've provided you some highlighted plans that kind of walk through each of the little changes. So maybe just real quickly, one of the things that we would like to do was we did have a larger patio put in. We were hoping to expand that another 7 feet. We were also hoping to construct a roof over that patio. I think something that we've always loved to do is spend time outside, and I think given, with the effects of COVID, I think we've been spending more time outside. And I can't tell you how many times when our existing home, we had a very small patio, we were forced to go inside when we were having a party just because of rain or weather issues. So we would love to have a cover over that patio. And I mentioned the change in the garage, hopefully moving that to get both cars in the garage. We did push back our garage to make it deeper, and we also went up to put a closet above it. We were hoping, we left off roughly 5 feet of that addition that is a flat roof. We were hoping to just extend that all the way over, which hopefully you can see on those plans as well. They did lower our garage floor by roughly 1.5 feet to reduce the slope of the driveway. So I think now when the garage doors go in the front of the home, there's going to be a very large space between the top of the garage doors and the dormer. So one of the things that we asked our contractor and the architect was, would it make sense to have a little overhang just to break up that space? They both agreed that would be a smart thing to do. Kind of frustrating that that was not something that was originally mentioned, or at least something they would have suggested. And then I think the last change was there was a little nook in the back of the home where we put the additional bedroom, and the reason the architect did that was to leave the bathroom window intact. And the contractor thought it made sense to make a smaller window and just have that wall flush, rather than have that cutout area. So I would say those are the major changes. I guess, or did you want to add that one? And I'd be more than happy to walk you through any of that highlighted, those highlighted plans.
Were any of these redrawn by any of your professionals?
Yes,
Were they submitted?
they were. We just tried to highlight what changes were being made because I think it was,
And you decided not to have them come and testify tonight? Okay. Certainly your
yes.
option. Questions? Mr. Dower?
One of the questions we had was regarding the building coverage. And there was none shown on the revised, or on the plan that was submitted. It just wasn't one of the listed items. But scaling it off, it appears that the building coverage proposed is 27.5 square feet, 27.5%, versus what is existing, which is 26.2, and the zone minimum or maximum is 18%. So I don't know if you can confirm that or not. So that would include the principal structure, the covered patio, the shed, and overhangs as well. They provide the lot coverage, but not a separate entry for building coverage.
So I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right one. It says building coverage required 18, existing 19.05, proposed 25.85.
Where are you on? I don't have that plan. Oh, that's on the architectural plan? They're saying it's 2579.
25.85.
It looks like 25.85.
25.85%, yeah, and and the maximum permitted is 18.
And Krista's number is higher than that.
Yeah.
Krista's number is 26.92. And 20.9 was previously, because this adds another 540 square feet. And the garage door thing is 61.5. If I'm reading her thing right. And the FAR is almost 5% over now too. Although that is slightly lower than what was approved prior.
Exactly, yeah.
Prior was approved at 29.5, and now it's 29.38. Okay.
So I mean, it's still an increase in the over what the maximum is permitted in the zone. affecting now with the impervious coverage, that was provided on the engineering plans. And that increase is roughly 380 square feet, and they provided 2 seepage pits in the front yard, and that's over-designed, so there's extra capacity, so that's acceptable.
That's a positive.
That's a positive.
So, and we do realize that obviously this is over, and this is somewhat of a, it's not over by 1 or 2%, but we do believe it's just something that I think would, I just think in terms of the usage of the patio, would be extremely helpful, obviously. I just think it's a space that, we utilize all the time, and, it's just frustrating if there's a rainstorm or there's bad weather that we're forced to run inside. And, I think about our old patio that was removed, even that was, I think, 10 by 12 or 10 by 13. And when it would rain, we would try and put a 12 by 12 expandable tent over that, and you couldn't move if it was raining. It just wasn't large enough. So I think even if it was the existing patio or the one that was originally proposed, a roof over that, I think it was still a relatively small space to really utilize for a family or a family gathering.
I have a question. Can I ask a question? The new expanded patio and the overhang creates the need for a side yard variance as well on the left side. I'm just curious if you guys have talked with your neighbor on that side and had any conversation about it?
Well, our new neighbor just moved in recently, and I met him, and he actually asked me, knowing that we were going to be coming here, and his agent told him that, there was something that he needed to approve in order, if he agreed or not for it to happen or not, depending on if he was for it or not. So I explained to him everything we were doing, and he's like, oh, no, I'm totally for it. And I was like, well, it's July 18th if you want to come to the meeting, just in case you don't approve. And he's like, no, I totally approve. And, I'm not going to be here anyway, but I approve, and I don't want to hold you up. I want you guys to move forward. I'm sure you guys want to get this over with. Just knowing he knew that we've been going through this a long time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone, no other questions? Okay, is there any questions for the
I have one more
applicants
question.
from the,
I'm sorry, I had one more question I just thought of. I read something about river rocks being impervious or not impervious, and maybe having a role in the calculation for the lot coverage.
Yeah, and
How is that resolved?
the city looks at it as being impervious, even though it technically is pervious. Chris and I have discussed this a couple of times. I think there's enough leeway in the seepage pits that they're proposing to accommodate that.
Okay, great.
Just the square footage actually will drain, but again, the city views that as being impervious.
And if that was something that would help in terms of removing, that would help you make a decision. I mean, that's something the prior owners had. It was not something that we were in love with, or if there was a better solution for that part of the yard, that's something that we would be open to changing.
Yeah, I would say defer to Mr. Linson if he believes that that's something that should be changed from an aesthetic standpoint, then that could be removed.
should we make that into a condition?
If you believe so.
I don't think he made any comments on
I'm
it.
just checking to see if he did, and he had only stated no
No
objection
objection,
in his
so-
report.
So,
I have another question. I guess it's with respect to FAR and the relationship of the garage to the FAR calculation. Before, have you started any work on the garage yet at all, or no? Yes?
Yeah.
Before you started the work, was your garage considered compliant in dimension and size kind of for your zone? Do you know?
So there was a 2-car garage. If you
Okay.
went to the back of the home, there were 2 separate garage doors.
Uh-huh,
I mean, you could fit a very tiny vehicle in each one, not,
okay.
but yeah, it was compliant. There was a pole in the middle, there was,
Okay,
but were they the size that you're planning but you could only fit one vehicle into them? So it was an old standard, correct?
Exactly.
Is old
It was
standard
not a
garage
current
size,
standard.
not
Yeah.
today's.
So it wasn't like a modern
And then
garage.
Yeah.
the other problem was the pole smack in the middle. Even if you did get a car, and I don't know how you opened your door, because the
Okay.
pole was right where your door was supposed to open.
And now you'll be able to fully park 2 Suburbans? Wow, it's like a hangar. That's awesome. That's great. Good. Oh.
Okay, are there,
I suppose I had one,
Just like more procedural, I know there was some confusion on the numbers. I know, if we approve a resolution, I don't want us to be short and then have an issue down the road. Is there any way?
the numbers we're looking to approve are assuming Krista's higher numbers, correct? So I think maybe we can address that by an updated architectural plans confirming those figures will be submitted. That's acceptable? That works. And then the other, I guess, a bit nitpicky question I have, but just to make sure we have all the legal bases covered. The floor area ratio that you're proposing is less than what was previously approved by resolution. Is it your lay opinion that the site can accommodate the increase in floor area ratio above the standard?
Well, when we were looking at this, we were hoping that was going to be the case, that we weren't going to be asking for another exception or permission above what was already a limit. So when our architect ran all the calculations, I think we were somewhat relieved it was below, but we still understand that.
And
You know.
you think the site can accommodate the floor area ratio figure that you're proposing? Is that right?
I would say yes.
and do you think that this causes any negatives to your neighborhood?
Any negatives?
Does anybody get hurt by this? Is there,
No, I
does it
mean-
cause a problem for anyone?
I mean, I think aesthetically, if you looked at the change, I think if you walked into our backyard, you would see, I mean, not that you would remember, but there was a gigantic driveway in the backyard because you had to pull into the back and then there had to be enough space to turn around. We really felt like our backyard was one big driveway. I think if you, and the removal of the old patio that also ate up a lot of yard space, I think if you walk back there right now and looked at kind of the way it's configured, you would say it feels very, very open. I think aesthetically, maybe someone could say, wow, there's no yard, it's all building, but it's really not. I think if you walk back there, at least to me, it seems like a good trip, no, a large portion of yard.
So from that explanation, it sounds like you're saying there's no public detriment, correct?
Not that I could see, it's, yeah.
Anything else from anyone? Anyone from the public wish to question witnesses? Anyone from the public wish to opine on what or tell us what they think of it? Okay, seeing none, we get to conditions, unless you have anything else to wrap up with.
Nothing.
Okay, so I have 2 conditions. First is compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. And the second is that, as we just discussed, the applicant shall submit updated architectural plans confirming the final building coverage figure.
Okay, moving into executive session, who would like to start? Oh, going away from you.
I'm happy to start.
Walter?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you want to start?
Oh, if someone else
Go
would like
for it,
to.
Walter.
Sure, I'd be happy to start. So 3 variance requests, and they're not small, truthfully. When I read it the first time, my eyes immediately, I think, went to the FAR as being a significant request. And then as I continued to read on, I realized, oh, well, recent colleagues did approve that. So then I looked more closely at the number, and actually you've by eliminating that mudroom, actually decreased the FAR a little bit. Which leaves the building coverage and this left side yard setback, which you answered my question regarding your neighbor, and it didn't appear to be any issue there, going from the 12 feet to the 8 feet. It's really the building coverage. That is not an insignificant variance. But I think it's mainly due to it's the roof overhangs in the area above, I guess, the garage and also the patio, or outside of the garage and the patio. And I understand the reasons for that. I think there's been a real lifestyle shift in how we all enjoy our outdoor spaces now, a shift to more indoor-outdoor. all year round, even in this type of climate. And I don't see that there'd be any detriment to anyone else, and I understand why you want to make that change. I also, I understand some of the internal changes too in the home and the floor plan and the not having the 5 a.m. garage door waking up the children thing. But so, for these reasons, I approve this, or I support this application.
All right, I'll chime in now.
Gonzalez, you're on.
Sorry.
I'll chime in. I agree with that. It seems like you're trying to pivot and do the best that you can. It seems like the previous board approved far more than what you're asking for tonight. Having a garage with stuff in it, it makes sense to move that stuff in order to fit your cars, so I commend that, and it sounds like you're doing your best to keep a good relationship with your neighbors. There seems to be no detriment to those around you, and you're really trying to make this work for your property and for your family, so I also would second this.
And I was, when when I saw the address, I'm like, why are they coming back? So we're trying to charm. Hopefully this is it. But, good. But this seems like, finally, it seems like a nice, complete design, and hopefully it will suit your family. And I would approve this as well.
Okay. For the third bite of the apple, it's it's a little difficult to sometimes get through these, but it seems as if you've hopefully come to the right conclusion, and that we won't be looking at a fourth time, that we'll move this, if indeed we all agree to move this forward. I see nothing negative to the neighborhood. It looks like certainly going to be positive for your daughter's schoolwork, and hopefully that will help the family, and the community will be doing better as well. So I can support it as well. And there is anyone willing to make a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Millet?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
And Vice Chairman Steiner.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Good luck. See you around the neighborhood. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back with 111 Whitridge.
Did you pick up any campers? Or are they still there? They're going.
We're dropping one off on Wednesday after this. Are you getting any?
No, my girls are there. They're in it for the whole deal.
Nice.
Go back on the record, as we're all back. And we go to 111 Whitridge Road. I'm not going to try it again, Carrie. I'm not going to get it right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Kosiancic. If you say cozy and sick, you'll
And
get
would
it
you
right.
spell it for the record?
Let me swear you in. If you could raise
Sure.
your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And then please state your name, spell your last name.
Sure. Carrie Kosiancic. It's Kociancic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please.
Sure. So good evening. Thanks very much for hearing my application for a variance. My husband and I are the owners of the property at 111 Whitridge, which is a single-family home, and this application is to install a Kohler 38 RCLC liquid-cooled generator on the right side of the home, just off of the chimney, and it requires a side yard setback, which is what brings me here today. We are interested in a generator because of a history of power outages in Summit, which I'm sure we've all experienced, particularly in our new neighborhood, which has really dense trees. We have a young child, so maintaining power is particularly important, and we also want to ensure the continued operation of our sump pumps. We just moved into our home August 30th, and we want to make sure that all of the new improvements that we've made, for example, to the basement, et cetera, aren't affected in the event of a power loss that causes the sump pumps to cease to operate. We believe that the location that we propose presents the best location from an aesthetic, an acoustic, and an operational standpoint. So taking each of those in turn. Aesthetically, the proposed location does not obstruct the neighbor's view at 110 Whitridge. They already have a 5-foot wood fence erected, so there's nothing that they would be, their view isn't changed by the addition of this generator. We did note that in the application comments that came back, there were comments about whether or not we would have a fence around the generator, whether or not we would have plantings. We certainly can do all of that. Our intent is to comply with any of those conditions. We were not aware that we had to put those forth in the application, but we certainly intend to comply, and that's something that we can do. We would request that we put those in after we install the generator, just so we don't have to get a crane to drop the generator in. But we're certainly fully intended to comply. In addition, that location allows us to put another layer of plantings for camouflage or screening. We're planning on putting some plantings up towards the front where it's indicated, where I had marked it on the survey. There's also a retaining wall in the front that has an area inside of it that can be used to support additional plantings. So all of this will enhance the street view rather than cause the generator to be any kind of obstruction or eyesore. The proposed location also does not block any windows. The generator is tall, and so if we were to move it, you could potentially see it from the interior of the home. From an acoustic perspective, we made the decision to invest in a generator that has a liquid-cooled engine. It runs at 1,800 RPMs. This is different than the typical home generator, which runs at 36 RPMs and has an air-cooled engine. It's typically a lot louder. So we are choosing to make that investment for the benefit of the neighbors, for the safety of our own children, of everyone's peace of mind being outside. So we're trying to find the least disruptive solution. And from a functional and safety perspective, the proposed location is in close proximity to the main gas line. This provides the maximum chance for optimum functionality in the event of an emergency, and it eliminates the need for any kind of gas conduit with additional piping. That piping could become compromised over time, particularly in an emergency situation where you have trees falling, et cetera. Plus, there would be an aesthetic aspect to potentially having to put a conduit and additional piping on the property. Any alternative location, while it would be compliant, we feel that it would obstruct the movement of landscaping through fences that were approved by the city that were just put up to help contain our dog. We've got gates that our landscapers use to bring their equipment in and out. We also believe alternative locations would be visible to our neighbors on the other side of our house at 113. They currently just have plantings, so you can see the generator, particularly in the winter when the trees lose their leaves. There's also an area where a potential location would be too close to an egress from a basement bedroom. So we feel that where we've proposed to put it really presents the best possible location, keeping in mind all of these considerations. We did note the comments from the fire chief, and our installer fully intends to comply with NFPA 37 and the manufacturer's installation instructions for placement less than 5 feet to home, windows, soffits, et cetera. That was his comment. So that was noted by our installer, and we intend to fully comply with that. The one thing I did want to note is in Krista's comments, she noted that she did not know whether or not the generator needed to be placed 3 feet from a non-combustible chimney, which is what the application had suggested. We actually have since found out that based on revised specifications from Kohler, 2 feet is sufficient. I do have those revised spec sheets with me if anybody wants to see them, but we are willing to do the 2 feet now that we know that that's an acceptable standard and our installer is comfortable that he can service the generator properly. Using Krista's numbers, that would result in a 9.5-foot setback rather than an 8.5-foot. And that's all I have to say. If anybody has
Okay.
Any questions?
Mr. Dower?
I had very little comments, but I do note that the applicant has proposed to upgrade the generator to make it quieter, being liquid cooled. They're aware, you're going to be aware that they can only exercise the generator certain times during the week, during the day before
Correct.
4 o'clock. I would say that they revised submission to just confirm the distance between the generator and the chimney, and then the generator and the side, the setback. But as long as it's not going to be less than what we're showing here, then that would be fine. Because we don't want, if it's less, then we've got a problem. Obviously, if it's more, that's not a problem.
And that was going to be one of my questions, is that confirmation, have you confirmed with the building department whether that 2 feet is sufficient? Are we sure about that number, or should the board be considering the 8.5 setback as previously proposed, and if it turns out to be closer, then you don't have to come back before the board?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. I didn't personally go to the building department. I went to our installer, which is Northeast Generators. I obtained the specification sheets. I'm happy to provide them. I'm happy to go to the building department if I need to. It was really a response to the comments we got from Krista that said, are we sure we need 3 feet? And so the answer is we're actually sure now that we think we're sure we need 2 feet based on what Kohler says. So I don't know if the building department also needs to opine on that.
Yeah, I just wouldn't put all my eggs in the basket of your, the generator's representatives or
Sure.
whoever did that confirmation. I think we would want to be sure about that. The safer option for you in that case would be keep the requested setback at 8.5 feet. And if
That's fine.
if it
I'm happy to
happens
do that if
be-
that's
if it happens
that's
to be
good.
closer,
We'll
then
just
great.
leave it at 8.5. We're happy to leave it at 8.5 if you want to further, if it means something material to the board. If you want to further explore the 2-foot option, we can, but we're also happy to leave it at 3.5. That's completely fine. Oh, sorry, at 8.5 with a 3 feet distance from the chimney.
Okay, questions from the board? none. Questions from the public? I think you're here for another application. No questions.
I actually do have a question based on some comments in the application, but it would presume that you're going to approve it, so I can hold the question.
Never presume, ask your
Right.
question.
Without presuming anything, there was a comment in the engineering comments that said, as a condition of approval, signed digital plans should be transferred to the City of Summit for use in updating the GIS database. As a layperson, can you help me understand what this means? What do I need to do in order to
Chris?
satisfy that requirement?
Submitted by your engineer, the thing, that's a standard comment.
So when you say do we have to engage an engineer?
Well, technically, yes, you would have to, unless I don't know if these plans that you have here have been digitized, that they can be submitted to the city.
We have them.
You just drew this on the survey, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'd say that can be eliminated, and then they would just have to submit, there's no grading plan because there's no change in grade, so this would be adequate. That was just that's a standard comment that's put in the.
So you're withdrawing that comment?
Withdrawing that comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
which saves you having to do that.
Very much appreciated.
Okay, who wants to start?
Before we do, let's note conditions.
Why not?
So, and I have one question on how picky we're going to be about one, but first is compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum, with the exception that digital plans will not be required. And a potential second condition is, do we want to suggest that if it's permitted to be within 2 feet, then they push it closer to the chimney? Or are we okay with just leaving the setback at 8.5 feet?
Personally, I'm okay with leaving it what they proposed and
Okay.
go from there.
Hearing no major complaints, we'll just leave it with the one condition then.
Andy, can we add a condition, just that whatever plantings they choose, that the height of it is already tall enough to screen the generator, that it's not going to grow into a screen?
Is that acceptable?
Yes. So you want plantings mature enough where at the moment of planting, they'll.
And I believe you also have an air conditioner there, and you're going to need to screen that as well.
My air conditioner is in a different location.
Okay. I don't
It's
know
in the
why I
back
thought
of my house, and it has a lot of screen around it.
Okay, I thought, okay.
I do have another question. I apologize. So with respect to the fencing and the planting requirements that are noted in the city's comments, what do I need to provide in order to comply with that? Do I need to provide a landscaping plan? Do I need to provide further information on the fencing? The notes from Krista suggested that, and maybe I possibly misread that, seemed to suggest that we would have to do those first and then put the generator in, which it's probably my mistake. Okay, so is there, if I could just get some further information on what is required to satisfy the conditions, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so when you file for the permit, you're going to include a copy of the resolution, assuming you get an approval, which we can't assume right now.
Correct.
Should that be the case for you, you will then include a copy of that resolution with the permit, and you can include like a detail showing the type of fencing you're going to use, or the shrubbery or something like that, and the permit will get stamped saying that you'll be obligated to provide such screening.
So I would just provide the additional detail in the
Yep.
permit application.
Correct.
And are there any specifications that are written somewhere that I could just double check to ensure that I'm compliant?
Yeah, actually, the height, having screening to the height of the unit is actually standard in the ordinance. But,
Are those ordinances anywhere where I could reference them just to make sure?
oh yeah, it's all online.
It's all
I
online.
can point you to it
Awesome.
So
after
if
the
you wanna
hearing.
take-
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
If you want to take down a note, it's section 35-14.1 and subsection J4.
Got it. Thank you.
That'll take you through that. Okay, any other questions? Last
No,
chance.
no, I'm good now.
Any other, we now have the conditions.
So, yes.
Anybody want to start?
Just
discussion.
note that second condition is now that screening will be with fencing or with plantings that are mature enough to cover the height of the generator.
Who would like to start? Ms. Knoll?
I think this is an easy application for a generator, considering all the power outages we have in Summit. And to upgrade to a quieter generator is very appealing, especially when you have a hum of generators all the way around. So that, I would be to approve.
Anyone else?
I just want to make a comment that that was a very nicely done application and presentation, so thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Chris was extremely supportive of my many visits and questions, so I appreciate
Wonderful.
the excellent service.
No, it sounds great to hear about Chris. No, it just sounds like it's very thoughtful.
Thank you.
Your reasons are very thoughtful for wanting it on that side. And you're, as my colleague said, you're investing in the more, the quieter unit, and I think neighbors will, certainly appreciate that. You'll appreciate that, rather than, putting in a new gas line or electric lines to move it and disrupting the whole landscape flow. I think it makes perfect sense, the arguments that you made. So I absolutely support this.
Thank you.
Well, there are no negatives. I think there's lots of positives to this one, and I can easily support it, and would accept a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
And Vice Chairman Steiner.
Yes.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate all your help and your time this evening.
The resolution, as you know, will come in about a month.
And the minutes, which will capture the conditions, more than my scribbles will, are those available?
That will be in the resolution.
You got it. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, 25 Baltus Roll Place.
All right, we'll get you
Mr.
sworn in
Morrison.
while he's setting up. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Tyler Morse, M-O-R-S-E.
Thank you.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your application? And we didn't get you to tell us earlier, you have one witness? One professional witness?
Yes.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about the application and why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife and I bought the house about a few months ago, and we were just elated that it was within our price point, but it came with a few hitches. One of them being that they no longer had a one-car garage. And every dwelling in the R5 zone needs a single-car garage. The pre-existing one fell over. It was no longer in compliance. It was too small in the internal dimensions, and it was due to water erosion, it must have rotted out, and it fell over. In the Google Maps walking, you'll walk down, I think it's from 2019, so it's a little dated, but you'll see the garage there, and you see it with a significant lean. And so, as you can imagine, it probably continued to lean and fell over. So the individual you bought the house from, he took it away. Unfortunately, he didn't go through the necessary protocols of taking the garage away and didn't replace it, whether he ran out of time or money, what have you. And so we bought the house with the understanding that we were going to build the garage. And so we got a credit from the seller. With that credit, we were able to hire the best expert there is, get some help done, to get it done right. And so we're just, trying to get a certificate of occupancy so we can live in our home. Because either way, we would need a variance to not have a garage, being in an R5 zone, or a variance to have a garage. Now, the reason why we needed a variance, is that the county took the original deed land for, Glenside Avenue. It's a county route, and so it was important, and so they shrunk our lot size. And so, which is great, I totally get the importance of the road, but with that, our lot is undersized for a corner lot in R5. So if it met the minimum requirements of the lot size, we wouldn't have need any variances. So whether it be the setback or the coverage. So here we are.
Okay. Questions, Mr. Dower?
Actually, there is not too many. They're proposing stormwater improvements.
For the applicant or for the engineer?
Oh, sorry, I'll wait for the engineer. There's
Okay,
nothing
I
really
thought
for
you
the
might.
engineer.
I thought you might.
I jumped ahead.
Anyone else? Okay, and I assume you want your engineer to take you home.
Yep, here we go.
If you could raise your right hand, do you swear affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Peter Korzen, spelled Korzen.
Thank you. Can you briefly describe your background experience and the 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor in New Jersey. I've been in business on my own for over 25 years. And I'm sorry, 15 years. And prior to that, I worked approximately 20 years in the industry. I've appeared before this board, Mountainside, Madison, Chatham, numerous boards.
And licenses in good standing in New Jersey, I imagine?
It is.
All right. Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept his credentials?
People accept your credentials, and please go right ahead.
Thank you. So this is sheet 2, and this shows the existing conditions on the left-hand side. And you can see the existing house here. The lot itself is undersized, as you've been told. It is, looking at the zoning data table on sheet 1, it is 5,736 square feet, where for a corner lot in the R5 zone, 6,000 square feet is required. The subject garage was located right there. There's an existing asphalt driveway that leads out to Glenside Avenue. The house itself is a wood deck in the front. It has some walkways in the front. It has lawn in the back in between the driveway and the house. Topography is gradual around the house. It's a little steep on the driveway at the beginning of the driveway, and then it flattens out towards the back. This is sheet 1. It shows proposed improvements, and you can see the new garage right there. That's 20 feet long by 14 feet wide. There's a proposed driveway modification in front of that, and the reason is twofold. One is to improve the grading and make it less of a steep slope down from Glenside Avenue, also to provide drainage. And the other reason is right now it's non-compliant for width, curb cut width at Glenside Avenue. It's currently 25 feet, where 18 feet is required, and that's what we're proposing. That's 18 feet for the curb cut. The driveway itself is 13 feet wide right there. Grading is very close to what's there right now. We have raised the front of the garage just to improve the slope going down to it and to accommodate a new trench drain that's proposed about 5 feet from the front of the garage. Runoff would, I also should mention that there is also a 2-inch high berm curb that's proposed right at the entrance to the driveway, and that's to prevent any roadside runoff from entering the driveway. But the driveway itself, that runoff would be collected by the trench drain. It would be conveyed as also the roof runoff from the garage itself would all be conveyed to an underground infiltration system, which is a plastic chamber system underground. That has been sized in accordance with city standards for stormwater management. The building itself is positioned at, this is a corner lot, so you have 2 front yards at 25 feet required, and you have 2 side yards at 10 feet, I believe. Let's see. So I'm sorry, that's 7 feet, but for a garage it would be 4 feet. So the garage itself is positioned slightly more than the required setback of 4 feet. It's 4.3 feet from the northerly property line and 4.3 from the easterly property line. So we got it as close as we could. But if you look at the zoning data table in the upper right, you see that there are 2 variances. One is for the front yard setback out to Glenside Avenue. You heard about that already. That is 22.1 feet, where 25 feet is required. The second variance is for building coverage. When you combine the new garage with the house, the total is 1,277 square feet. That's 22.26% of the lot area, and that exceeds the 20% permitted. So that's really it from a technical perspective. I'm a professional planner also. I'm not going to testify as a planner just because I haven't reviewed the master plan, but I believe that as far as the front yard setback variance, I believe that could be granted as a C1 variance just because of the small area of the lot and the constraints of the 2 front yards. There's really no other place to put the garage. As far as the building coverage goes, I believe that's been adequately addressed by the underground detention system. So as a result, I see no detriment to the public good and no detriment to the zoning ordinance as a result. And I'm open for questions.
Mr. Dowery, you're up.
The applicant has provided seeper spits that pick up the trench drain, which he mentioned. They're trying to control the stormwater from coming in off of the side road to going into the driveway with that raised curb cut, which is good. And they provided the required calculations. The location is fine, so I have no objections to the stormwater. Are there any proposed air conditioning units, central air generator?
No.
Okay. And then we defer to the forester for any requirements for review for any landscaping, and then also to the county if there's any required restrictions on curb cuts. They're reducing the curb cuts, so I assume that's a plus. The county, I would assume, would be favorable to that. One thing that I did notice, and I'm sure everybody else did in Chris's report, was the size of the garage. And I don't know if the applicant wanted to address that.
I actually did not receive any reports,
Okay.
so I haven't seen that.
Okay, what she is saying is that basically the depth of the property with the, the proposed garage depth is 20 feet, does not provide the required interior clearance of 20 feet. If the garage were to be constructed 21 feet deep to provide the required interior depth clearance, the proposed building coverage would be an additional 14 square feet for total building coverage of a proposed 22.51. However, doing so would reduce the length of the driveway to 19.1 feet. So you have a non-conforming garage if you build what you're saying.
Okay, well, certainly take that into consideration. I don't, a larger garage for me that sounds wonderful because the garage is all utility, right? It's where you keep tools, your lawnmower, your car, and to store that stuff away so my neighbors don't have to look at it, or myself, that for me is a plus. However, for also utilities, keeping the car outside of the garage is pretty normal too on a nice summer day. So, it'd be nice to have a little longer of a driveway because we're already constrained that way. So, I could take, either way for me is fine. If you think it's more important to have more conforming garage that's 21 or 22 feet, that's fine. And just shorten the length of the driveway. We have a Toyota Camry. It's not like we have an Escalade and the car is going to stick out halfway. You know what I mean? So our lifestyle doesn't suit that per se. So it really depends on what notes that you guys might have. Which way.
Do you ever intend to potentially own a pickup truck or an Escalade or Suburban?
I mean, not in this market, it would be nice, but no.
Well, 19 feet, if you're going to park it in the driveway, 19 feet is exactly the length of a vehicle like that, so you may want to keep that in mind.
So,
Might have
either
been
way
shopping
you guys
for a
want it,
pickup
I don't
truck.
really,
And do you plan to have a second car?
No. if the house was enormous, then, you know, and you have a big family and you need 2 cars, but, you know, it's not that kind of property or house. You know, it's a 3-bedroom, you know, and so it's very much, you know, smaller family, smaller car kind of area, you know.
Well, it's not our decision, I don't think, really to make. It's your decision as to what you want to present to us.
Yeah, I guess going forward, yeah, a 21-foot garage is, you know, but what we're putting forward, would I have to present new plans and have it redrawn up and come back here if I said, if we were gonna propose a 21-foot garage?
Another foot on the garage and a reduction in the length of the driveway is not going to have any material effect on the grading that I've done for the driveway.
The one thing I would ask is, the front of the garage, how does that line up to the house next to you on the, facing the garage to the left?
They are on a retaining wall, so they are several feet above our property line. And so their house faces Glenside. So the garage door and their garage built into the house would run parallel to one another.
So they'd be like this, not like that?
Ours
Yours
would stick
wouldn't
out
be in front.
further. Yeah, they have a longer garage. Their house is set further back in their property line. So our garage would be, it would stick out further than their garage and it would parallel their driveway.
The front of the neighbor's house is about at the midpoint of where the garage is proposed. So
Okay.
a foot's not gonna make a difference.
So that's not going to make any difference all the way then? Okay. It was just a perception, as I lived like 2 blocks from there, I couldn't figure it out. Okay. Questions from the board? Oh, questions from the public? You're the only public. Still don't know what we're being asked to do.
Yeah, we do need a final answer on that.
I'll do 21 feet.
Yeah, because wouldn't you want
your
your car in the garage at some point, especially in the wintertime?
Oh, yeah.
Because that would make sense to have that little extra space.
So a condition would be
Because otherwise you're
that we'll
shimmering
have
out of
to,
your car.
Yeah, and it's a Toyota Camry, so it is a smaller vehicle.
You're still
but
shimmering out of your car.
To be honest, my size, I'm shimmying out of most cars. I mean, you know.
so would a condition be that we get revised plans to,
I imagine we will need revised plans, but you don't need to come back before the board. I know that was one of the
Oh, okay, so
questions.
you
Yeah,
can submit
pro-
that digitally, get it to
yeah,
us
and
and stuff.
prior to the resolution? Does that make sense?
Can they turn them around that fast? I don't know that we necessarily need it before the
Okay.
resolution, but
Before
before construction.
Before the building permit?
Yeah.
Before-
submitted and conform to the resolution as part of the.
Okay. All right, any other comments, questions? Okay, do you have anything to wrap up on this? Any final comments?
Oh, we're just excited to be here.
Okay.
Living in Summit.
If there are none, we'll move into executive session. Anybody who wants to kick it off?
Just briefly, the conditions are first,
Yes.
compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum, and that the second condition is that revised plans reflecting the garage length of 21 feet will be submitted.
I'll start, I guess.
Go for it.
So I'm supportive of the application. The lot is undersized for the zone, poses a hardship that way. The configuration of the lot is such that you really can't put the garage anywhere else. It's positive to have a garage as well. There's really no detriment to anyone, and I'd also note that they're reducing the existing nonconformity by reducing the curb cut. For those reasons, I'm in favor.
Anyone down this end want to say something? Mr. Gonzalez, you're all the way down there.
Absolutely. You bought the house, your garage fell down. That's not your fault. So you're coming before the board, you're trying to be in conformity, right, be in compliance, and there's no detriment to your neighbors. It seems like you're just trying to get into your house and out of your car. So it's a wise choice. You're also capturing water that's coming down Glenside, which that's probably a lot of water coming down that hill, right? You're It's a benefit to all who live around your neighborhood. So for that reason, I would be for this.
I can tell you I was there while it was pouring today. There was water running down that street.
Yeah. The original was a gravel, packed gravel.
This is us, not, sorry.
My first time,
I did say it, but, I gotta have some fun with this one. But I think taking care of the water is a certain positive that makes this an appropriate project to move forward. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Dr. Levine?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Steiner?
Yes. Congratulations. I'm glad you're happy. And we still have some more business to go through. So we go to the Chris show.
Yeah, so 3 resolutions, all the same eligible voting members, so I'll read them once. So first is 141 Oak Ridge Avenue, application ZB 22-2129, and the eligible voting members are Vice Chairman Steiner, Ms. Newell, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, and Mr. Gonzalez. Do we have a motion? And a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
And Vice Chairman Steiner.
Yes.
All right, next is 26 Joanna Way, application ZB 22-2123. Same eligible voting members.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Vice Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
All right, and last is 129 Whitridge Road, application ZB 22-2128. Same eligible voting members.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Ms. Newell?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
And Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
All right, and we got minutes from June 20th to approve. Would somebody like to move those?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Okay, our next meeting is the special meeting on Wednesday, July 27th, and we are adjourned.